Hello again, this is Paul, and this video is going to be about the modified projector I use for capturing frames, frame by frame images of my films. I get a lot of comments saying, wow, your captures look very clean, and that's because I'm using a very nice projector, and I made some modifications to it that allow me to trigger a recorder to, actually it's a computer to record frame by frame for each image without any kind of blurring or motion blurring or any of that stuff. It's a relatively inexpensive projector, and once it's modified, you'll be able to do pretty nice looking captures of your footage. This is the 8mm version. This is the Bolex 18.5 projector. 18-5 is what you would search for on eBay. There are two versions of this projector. One of them has the 8mm version, and the other one is the Super 8 version, but they're almost identical, so they're a little hard to tell apart. I'm going to show you what you're looking for the regular 8mm version. It has these little metal, they're basically guides, and they're very unique. I've never seen another projector that does it this way, but there's a little slot here and it's spring loaded, and it just grasps the outside edges of the film and guides it, make a loop here, and then it goes into this really nice pressure regulated gate area. So another great thing about them is they have these guides. See this guide right here and this guide? The film goes right in between those guides, and it doesn't have a lot of gate weave and other artifacts that you may see in other lesser projectors. Bolex really, when they design something, they put their full weight of their engineering department behind it, and it looks like a very simple projector, but there are some very important features to this projector that make it better for frame by frame capture, and let me go over those right now. The one is, as you've seen, this is all metal construction, and it's very gentle on film. I've never had this projector scratch a film that I put into it, and I don't expect it ever will. Okay, so let's go around this. This is the regular 8mm. Let me go over that again. I removed the bulb here, and I have removed all of the shutter leaves, okay? Normally there's I think there's 8. This is a very strange projector because in one mode, the projector leaves are like this far apart, and then when you slip it, go into the slower mode, they're like this far apart, and they go to this far apart. It's a very strange projector, but you don't need any of those because we're not going to use the shutter that's built into the projector to hide the pull down. What we're going to do is we're going to trigger capture to happen right after the pull down happens. So if you don't know, these projectors have claws that basically go into the perforations and pull down for every frame of film. So what I do is I cut all the shutter blades off. I tape this whole thing off with like blue painter's tape behind the shutter wheel, in front of everything that's exposed gets taped off. And then I take a Dremel tool with a carbide or diamond saw blade in it, and wearing safety goggles and keeping away. This is going to make some sparks, so you don't want anything that flammable around when you're doing it. You might want to do that in the garage. And then I turn the inching knob on the front here, which has been modified for this projector, but it's right here. And I turn that inching knob back and forth and rock it until I saw all the way through each of the shutter blades. They're very thin metal, but some of them are a little thicker than others. And I remove them all, okay? Then there's some little springs and stuff that'll be exposed. You can yank those out with a pair of pliers. This is completely inconsequential, other than it drives the rest of the mechanism, so you just can't go in there and just remove the whole thing. It's still needed, but you don't need the shutter blades. And so another thing you have to do is there's a little glass protective IR piece of infrared piece of glass that keeps the film from getting burned when this shutter, when the shutter's moving slowly and more light's going through. It keeps it. So what you want to do is go through the back side here and poke something through there and poke it out. You don't need that. It's going to get dirt on it, and you just don't need it. It's another thing in your optical path that's just going to cause you problems. So we're getting rid of the blades and the little glass piece that protects, it's like a little shield that protects the film from the backside from infrared, from the bulb. The bulb is very hot. We're not going to use this bulb at all. We're going to use a different type of bulb. We'll get to that. And you say to yourself, why the 18.5? Well, it's got a 400-foot capacity. It's very gentle on film, and it has one more trick up its sleeve. It shows films at 18 and 5. The 5 is what you need to capture with. 18 is too fast for most devices to capture from, and definitely any kind of a digital camera or something like that will never be able to keep up with capturing continuously at 18 frames a second. The 5 frames a second is what we need. That seems to be the best possible scenario that I have found so far. So in this projector, it goes all the way around. You've got, with the lamp off, with the lamp on, that's why it's dark here. But none of this is relevant other than 18 and 5 because we've removed the bulb. We're not going to use the bulb. And so it's always going to be on or it's always going to be off when we turn the lamp off and on. Okay, if you stayed with me this far, we'll move around to the front. And what I have here is called a 3D printer end stop. These are very easily found on Amazon, and they sell them in packs of 5, 10, whatever, a whole bunch in a pack. And so underneath there, I have a little triangular little shelf. And what I did was I drilled and tapped right here, and I put a screw right in there, and it holds it all together. Now, if you don't want to drill and tap it, you can use some, it's not double-sided tape, it's 3M emblem tape. And that's, I think actually, this one is put on with the emblem tape. Once something's on with the emblem tape, it does not come off, okay? So make sure you get it where you want it, and, tape it. You push it on there and hold it, and it's pressure sensitive, and after a few hours, say 24 hours, it's going to be permanent, because this stuff is designed to hold emblems onto your car paint through a car wash and everything else. So it's very powerful. It's not double-sided, it's just an adhesive tape, and you have to peel the outside covering off of it. And then cut a little square of it, and then like hold the. So this is like a little aluminum bracket that I had laying around, but you could use anything. You could use a block of wood, and which might even be better. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible because an affordable capture device for 8mm and Super 8 film is pretty much hard to find. And with movie stuff going away, the company that was making them, and there's several others making them, but that movie stuff was the main one. And I wanted something, that would do a comparable job in fidelity and steadiness. So this projector will get you most of the way there. This is a little 3D printed thing. This is the inching knob. This is what you would turn this, say your film got stuck or you wanted to start the film, you could turn this and it will rotate the mechanism and cause the pull down claw to work and all that. So what I've done is, because this is 1-to-1, it rotates once per frame. So what I did was I 3D printed this little thing and used that same type of 3M emblem tape. I'll put a link in the description, but everybody sells it. If you just put 3M emblem tape, you're going to find it. And then I glued the what do you call it? End stop. This is called a photo end stop. And basically there's an LED on one side and a sensor on the other side. And so what I did was I cut this little tiny shutter, okay? I used a piece of black aluminum, very thin black aluminum. You could use a piece of a soda can and then cut it out in this shape, paint it black. It doesn't even have to be painted, but this one's black, and then drill a hole in it. And this could be a piece of wood. You could just use a wooden dowel and then just cut it off and make it the right size, and use that emblem tape to stick it on there. This is 3D printed, but you could use what you have on hand. You could use a bottle cap. Maybe you can find a bottle cap that's about this shape and see if that works. But then you can just screw right into it. This one is tapped, but you can just use a self-tapping metal screw or plastic screw or whatever. And so what this does, on every rotation, it goes through here and it interrupts this light beam, which causes a circuit to close, and it sends, so we have one of the wires is power, one of them is ground, and one is signal. So you would wire the power and the ground to 5 volts, and then ground and signal will go out to, I will stop right here and go grab the electronics portion of this thing. Okay, so here we went through the projector modifications that are required. Now we're going to go over the electronic portion of this thing. I'm keeping this as simple as I possibly can because I am not an electronics wizard. I have a pretty good, basic knowledge of electronics, but I'm not a programmer. I'm not an electrician by trade. Anyway, let's get to this. So this is a keyboard emulator, basically. So this is for people who like to build their own video game cabinets, like the old school Atari cabinets or whatever with Pong. And it's basically a very simple USB emulator of a keyboard. So you can have actually as many keyboards and mice on your computer as you like. Apple and Microsoft don't limit you. You can have 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 mice and keyboards hooked up at the same time. So this is going to act like an additional keyboard when you hook it up through the USB port. The only key we need in this situation is the enter key. Right there where my thumb is, it says enter, and if you look, well, looky there. I have it wired right to the enter key. It comes with these little pre-wired plugs, and you just plug it into the key. It says enter, and then it has red and black, and now it's going to the output of a relay board. I've tried to go directly from the end stop there and trigger the keyboard emulator, but it just wasn't working. So I went through a solid state relay board. This is a DC mini relay, okay? And let's see, who made it? I got this many years ago. I will try to put a link to a modern equivalent, but this one has like a transistor and a photo, a photo isolator. And so basically we're going out of the output side. So this is the input side. This is the output side. The output side is going to the keyboard because that's what's going to go to the computer until you hit the enter key. The enter key is what's going to trigger every frame. It's going to be just like you sat there on the keyboard, advanced 1 frame, and then hit enter on the keyboard to make the computer capture a frame. That's important because the software I'm going to go over later uses that enter key as its input. Okay, so outboard side to the keyboard emulator. Inboard side is from this end stop. So here's our wire. It's going around here. I have it split off. This is let's see. This is the negative side, okay? You see the little symbol here? It says negative, okay? And so this is a 5-volt barrel connector, okay? Screw-in type. Screw-in type barrel connector, and we have a plus and a minus symbol on it. This is the plus side, and this is the minus side. So I have the minus side and the plus side are going, you see the wire here? What's that say right there? That's the plus side. The plus side is going to the plus side of the power, and the minus side is going to the minus side, and that powers the LED. A light will come on here, and it will show you that this is energized. Okay, I'll plug it in a minute, but for right now, just take my word for it. Okay, this is the signal. This is the signal line. So there's The plus and the minus are on the outside two wires. The center wire is the signal wire. The signal wire is what's going to actuate this relay, this little digital solid state relay, okay? So the signal, I have it wired to another wire that could go straight into this, and then that's the positive side of the input, okay? And this is the negative side of the input going. So I have both the negative to the end stop and the negative to this relay have to be wired together. So you see both wires going into the negative side of the plug. And this is all 5 volts. So it's no dangerous voltage going on here. It's just 5 volts, okay? So there we go. Now there may be a way of tapping power and getting 5 volts off of this. I didn't look into it, and that would eliminate this here, but you know, if you're more electronically inclined than I am, go for it, man. Find the 5 volts coming off of your USB port in the ground and use that. It's probably here in one of these pins. I don't have the data sheet for this, but I'm sure I could find it. And here's the part number for this device. It's CY1124HC, and it's by SJ at JX. Keyboard Coding Control Board. Okay, so you find something similar to this on Amazon. They're going to be all from the same company that makes them, but these people will put their own logo on it when they sell it up on Amazon, like they made it themselves. Anyway, let's keep going here. So now we have this. So we have this. The blade goes through here. It interrupts the light. It sends a signal down here to the relay board, which closes this. Okay, so this going off will cause this enter key to think it's been pressed. And this goes USB into your computer's USB port. Okay, pretty simple. That's about as simple as it gets. If you can't handle wiring this, then you're probably going to have to go buy one of those, you know, pre-made Kodak, you know, film capture devices and hope for the best. This is a much better solution because it's customizable. You can go with any camera you own. Now we're going to go over the software side of this and the camera side of this. Okay? Okay, so if you're following along with the last section of this, this is part 3. It'll all be in the same video, but if you want to think about it as the hardware, the electronics, now we're getting to the hardware interface to the computer. This is a Blackmagic 3G Ultrastudio recorder. This one has the USB-C lightning plug. Make sure that you know that your computer has a lightning port and not just a USB-C port. If you don't know what that means, you're gonna have to do a little research. But in this case, the computer must have a lightning port. Any modern Macintosh computer like this Mac Mini I'm fixing to show you has that. And it also has an SDI input, so you could use an SDI camera or an HDMI input. So either one of those work. You can't have them hooked up at the same time. Well, you can, but then you have to switch it back and forth in software to tell it to use whichever port. So let's go over to my camera here. This is my Blackmagic, don't mind all the mess, but this is my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. This is the original version that has a 1080p output. So it can be 1080p 24, 1080p 30, and the different variations of, of those two. Okay, it uses a micro four thirds mounting system. So we have to have a micro four thirds to C mount adapter, C to M43, okay? Because what I do is I use this. This is a microscope lens that's used for digital microscopes. So normally you just have a C-mount camera just attached to the back here, but I'm using my Blackmagic camera. Why this camera? Why this specific camera? Because this has high bit rate, high quality video. This is a cinema camera, so it has a 14-bit cinema quality video signal coming out of this. And they're becoming available up on eBay. When you buy one off of eBay used, make sure you ask the seller if the HDMI port is working. It has a micro HDMI port, and they are famous for snapping off inside the camera. So if you buy one of these, make sure it has the working HDMI port and that the rest of the camera is working. I've seen several of the, Adorama has a used department that has a money-back guarantee policy and all that. So you might look into there and ask a few questions if they're willing to help you out. Anyway, this is the microscope adapter, and this sensor is small enough and it's the correct shape. It's exactly the size of a Super 16 millimeter frame of film. The sensor inside of here is a Super 16 sensor. That's very important, because if you use a larger sensor, you're going to be cropping it, because this lens will only cover an image circle slightly larger than the Super 16 sensor. And you're going to have to look that stuff up if you have questions on it, what, a crop sensor is, and why this camera has Super 16. It's a very famous camera. This one has a cage around it. Normally it doesn't come that way. It just comes with the camera. So you want to reinforce this HDMI port, or you will snap it off when you put your micro HDMI to HDMI adapter cable like this one in there. You better have it supported like from the underneath or something like that, or put a cage, and hopefully it came with a cage to begin with. Anyway, let's get back to this. This is the lens I'm using, and then the lens focuses right on the gate. This is on a stand that's for a microscope, okay? This is an electronic microscope stand. And what I did is I loosened the screw here, and I turned it 90 degrees, and I reattached the screw, and now I have it adjustable up and down, okay? That's real important for getting that thing centered perfectly. You're working on a tiny little 8mm or Super 8 frame, and the way I focus it is I move it in and out, left and right, and then up and down is with this thing. This is a fairly recent way I'm doing it, but this is what's going to work universally. Now you could use another camera here, as long as it has clean HDMI output. And I like this camera because, like I said, it's a 14-bit super high color, super high bit rate signal, and it sends a clean signal right out of here into the Blackmagic recorder, the Ultrastudio recorder 3G, into a Thunderbolt cable. And I'm going to move over here. There's a bunch of wires because this isn't the only thing I do with this computer, and then I have it going into one of the Thunderbolt, USB-C Thunderbolt ports. Okay, then you have to install the Blackmagic driver software for the Ultra recorder, and you will get this program here called Blackmagic Media Express, and you'll also get, this is on the Macintosh. I don't have a solution for Windows at this time because I'm using Macintosh for this, but you can get these used. This is an i7 Mac Mini, and everybody's upgrading to the M1 and M4 Mac Mini, so you can get these pretty relatively cheap. Get the most recent version. Anyway, let's get to the system settings. And down here at the bottom, if you scroll after you install, you're going to have the Blackmagic design under your preferences. And then now it shows that the Ultrastudio 3G recorder is hooked up. If you click this little circle here, you're going to select HDMI or SDI, whichever signal you have going in. So mine is HDMI. And we click save, and now this thing is ready to go. I already have it hooked up. Now this is a program called Swift Capture right here. This is what I use to capture my frames. Now I'm going to pause the recording of this, and I'll get it all set up back so you can see it all working together. Okay, so here's the final assembled version of this system all set up. This is just a little RGB video light from Ulanzi. It has a nice diffused light. There's no shutter, they cause flicker or anything going on. As you can see, the light on the end stop is lit up, and if I were to rotate this between these two plastic posts, the shutter blade here will block the light, and this light will begin to blink. We'll go over that and I'll show you that in a second. So I don't have any film threaded up, so let me go ahead and put some film in this thing. Okay, so here it is. I have film threaded, as you can see. I have the light behind it. You're going to want to turn this light way down if you're doing negative. You're going to want to turn it down to like sub 14%. This one's at 8%. So that's a good starting point. And you can go up and down to get enough light in there. This is a great projector. It's not self-threading. The Super 8 version is self-threading, but I really like this because if I decide I want to rewind this halfway through, I can just take the film out in like a second. And so, you know, the self-threading one is not as forgiving as that. You have to stop the film and reverse it and, you know, run it backwards and all that. And anyway, let's see this thing in motion here. Okay, so let me turn it down. This is the 5 frame per second. As you can see, this light down here, see it blinking? Blink, 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 blink. It's doing that 5 times a second. Now, right now, I do not have it hooked up to the USB cable to trigger it until I get my film queued up to where, okay, so now here's what we see from the projector. And as you can see the pull down. That's because this image is not being captured. It's just as it's running through the projector. When it's captured, I have the timing set up to capture right after the pull down happens. When the frame is pulled down to the next frame, then I have the trigger set to capture a frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this thing in right here. Let's see. So the D side is up. That's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, like this. There it goes. Okay, so now you see the light is on. This is the keyboard emulator, which is wired to the relay, which is wired to the... We went all over that. So only one set of wires is hooked up here. And we're going USB into the Mac Mini USB port. And then we have the image that's displayed from the Blackmagic camera through the Ultrastudio recorder. And then I'm going to go up here and show you some settings. So in the settings, I have selected the Ultrastudio Recorder 3G. If you have a built-in, you know, if you're using a different type of Mac and it has a built-in camera, you want to set it to the Ultrastudio Recorder 3G, okay? So then we set the video size. You can actually set this size to anything you want it to be. So if you want it, like, have it upscale from the standard resolution, which is 1920 by 1080, and you want to upscale it to 4K, you can just select that here. You can up or down scale it or whatever, and in real time, when it captures, it will do that. So I have this set to flip vertical because the camera is mounted the right way, and the film, as we all know, the film is actually shot upside down as it's going through the camera, in case you didn't know that. Anyway, so no audio source. And what's cool about this software, the Swift Capture Video software, is you can adjust the brightness, the contrast, the colors. I have the colors turned all the way off because I'm capturing black and white. And then you can give it a little sharpness if you want. And then these have to do with the file naming, and I just select these, TIFF and all that. But what's going to happen is you go down here to the bottom and you select your video codec here. Okay, so you can capture as H.265, H.264, motion JPEG, Apple, you know, ProRes 422, HQ, LT, or just regular. I use HQ. Okay, and so we don't care about audio, so just leave it alone and the basic settings, and then we'll close this out. Okay, that was just the settings portion. Now we're going to go in and say start motion recording. Now my Mac here is full, okay? But I will show you how to do this, but it's going to complain that there's nowhere to store this clip because my Mac's full. So I would have to hook up an external drive. But anyway, you want to go stop motion recording, okay? And then you want to pick where the file is going to be. Okay, so we'll choose the default path, which is Swift Capture. Okay, so now it hasn't captured anything yet. But as soon as I turn the projector on, look at that, it's captured that many frames. Now if that shutter stops and blocks the light, it will continuously trigger a capture. So you could just bump the projector over a little bit so it's not stopped in that position. Anyway, I'm going to turn this to the 5 frame per second setting on the projector. And look at that. Click, 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 click. It's capturing frame by frame. Without any advanced computer knowledge, you can get this thing going if you use this Swift Capture program and set it up the way I told you to, or I showed you. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. So if this doesn't work out, this wasn't really instructions. This is how I did it. You need to figure this out for yourself, but this is how I did it. And if you follow these way I did it, it should work. And if it doesn't, there's probably a technical issue with the Blackmagic recorder software. I've had problems with it, and you're gonna have to work that out with Blackmagic. I can't troubleshoot your computer system for you, sorry. So anyway, it's captured all these frames, and then I will turn it off, okay? So I didn't have this set up perfectly focused and all that. This is just a demonstration. But if I stop this recording now, and I find that I will be able to play it back, okay? So I would have to go to, I would have to go find that recording in Swift Capture there, and trust me, it'll play it back. I've done this a bunch of times. But anyway, that's how this thing works. It works for me. I hope it works for you. I have an i7 Mac Mini here, and that works just fine. I believe in a late model i5 Mac Mini would probably work just as well. The only difference is I believe this has 8 cores and the i5 has 4 cores. I might be wrong on that, but this, if you have a fast enough, relatively modern Mac Mini with a Thunderbolt port, the method I just described should work for you. And you can get more sophisticated on how you have this hardware here. Like I just have it aimed at the gate, but I have another version of this with a slab of wood and a macro stage that moves this all in and out and all that. This is just to show you how basic this thing could be. And I hope you get yours working. If you leave comments and follow me, I will be able to get back to you. If you don't follow me and I comment, you won't see the comments. So, catch 22. If you want to leave a comment and ask me a question, I'm happy to answer it if I know the answer. And thanks for watching, and I hope you get yours working, and please subscribe if you like this video.